legend has it that Buddhism was brought to Sri Lanka by the son of the Emperor Ashoka, Mahinda, who himself was a Buddhist monk, a Buddhist elder. And Mahinda converted the king of Sri Lanka at the time, Tissa, or Devanampiya Tissa, as he was called.
King Tissa repeatedly requested Mahinda for an authentic Buddha relic to enshrine and worship at his capital of Anuradhapura.
With Mahinda's help, they sent a young novice named Sumana back to India to get some relics from Mahinda's father, Ashoka. And Ashoka was generous enough to give to Sumana a bowl full of relics, that is called, but actually the bowl that the relics were contained in was actually the begging bowl of the Buddha that also became an important relic in the island of Sri Lanka.
Mahinda and King Tissa set about the construction of a stupa at Anuradhapura to enshrine the collarbone relic. This stupa became known as the Thuparama, and it remains one of the most venerated Buddhist sites in Sri Lanka to this very day. At this time, King Tissa also expressed great faith in the Bodhi tree growing at Bodh Gaya as a holy symbol of the living power of the Buddha's enlightenment, and he made a sincere wish that a cutting from the original Bodhi tree be transferred to Sri Lanka, where a new tree could be grown and venerated.
The Bodhi tree in Sri Lanka, in Anuradhapura, is said to be a transplanting of the southern branch of the Bodhi tree from Bodh Gaya that was brought there by King Ashoka's daughter Sangamita when she came to Sri Lanka to found an order of nuns. The Bodhi tree in Anuradhapura had seeds. The seeds were planted. Bodhi tree saplings grew. Those Bodhi tree saplings were taken and transplanted all over the island of Sri Lanka at regular intervals, so that today, technically speaking, or I guess mythologically speaking, every Bodhi tree in Sri Lanka is said to be the descendant of the Anuradhapura Bodhi tree, which is said to be the descendant or the offshoot of the Bodh Gaya Bodhi tree as well.
Buddhism was formally installed as the state religion of Sri Lanka, and after a number of years, which witnessed a great flourishing of the doctrine there, King Tissa passed away and was succeeded by King Uttiya. Mahinda and Sangamita both passed away on the island about 10 years later, and stupas were erected to enshrine their cremated remains as well. After this was constructed what is still one of the world's largest Buddhist stupas, the Jetavana Dagoba at Anuradhapura. One testament to the massive size of the construction of these important Buddhist stupas is that even up to the beginning of the 20th century, 2 of Sri Lanka's Buddhist stupas were still counted as being among the top 5 largest buildings in the world, ranking along with the Great Pyramids of Egypt. It was 50 to 100 years after the death of Arhat Mahinda when King Duttagameni of Anuradhapura set about the construction of what is today considered one of the most holy sites in Sri Lanka, the great Ruvanveli Dagoba. The construction of the Ruvanveli was undertaken on a grand scale, and great care taken to build and consecrate all the elements of the building according to auspicious astrological indications and signs. Another Buddha relic which has played a very important role in the history of Sri Lanka and is well known as one of the most important Buddha relics in the world is the famous tooth relic of the Buddha, which was taken, so the story goes, from the original funeral pyre of Gautama Buddha by the Brahmin Drona. From there it became the property of the king of Kalinda in the north of India, and it was passed on from one generation to the next by kings who used their possession of the tooth relic to legitimize their right of kingship. However, the climate in northern India at the time was becoming increasingly antagonistic toward Buddhism, and a ruler of a nearby kingdom sought to destroy the tooth relic because they thought it unseemly to worship a tooth rather than the deities of the Hindu pantheon.
At various times, relics have been captured by non-Buddhists who are antagonistic to these relics, especially non-Buddhist kings. They have tried to essentially destroy the relic and found that it was impossible to do so. Typically, they're said to put it into on an anvil and hit it with a hammer, and the relic simply sinks into the anvil and is not busted. Or they put it in a fire and try to burn it, and the relic simply stays in the midst of the flame and is not destroyed.
Still, neighboring kingdoms plotted renewed attempts to destroy the relic. Because Buddhism was flourishing in Sri Lanka, it was decided that the tooth relic be secretly moved there. Not unlike King Ashoka before him, King Kalinda sent his son and daughter, the Prince Dantha and the Princess Hemamala, to Sri Lanka to deliver the Buddha's tooth relics to the king at Anuradhapura, so as to maintain its safety and ensure its uninterrupted veneration. Smuggling the most precious tooth relic under conditions of extreme danger in the bun of her hair, Hemamala fled from the Indian heretics and transported the relic safely to Sri Lanka. The relic was received with great veneration by the king Meghavarna at Anuradhapura around 400 A.D. The king built a beautiful temple at the capital to enshrine the tooth relic. There, daily, monthly, and annual schedules venerating the tooth relic were set up, which continue largely uninterrupted to this day. Once in Sri Lanka, the ownership of the tooth relic has always represented the most important determining characteristic of kingship, and ownership of the relic has determined the rightful ruler of the country. When the British took over the island of Sri Lanka in the 19th century, they effectively became responsible for the religious observances associated with the tooth, including a once-annual perahera, or procession of the tooth relic around the streets of Kandy. The British were to maintain the rituals associated with the tooth for about 30 years before they returned the duties back to the temple committee at Kandy, which is today still responsible for the daily rituals associated with the veneration of the tooth relic. Millions of Buddhists around the world still venerate the Buddha relics at Sri Lanka, and even today it remains one of the most important Buddhist pilgrimage destinations.